And welcome back to Where Wendy Travels, Where Wendy Creates. Today we're with Sylvia and we're looking at doing this block. It's a patriotic block. And Sylvia, tell me what we're doing.
Well, first we take some 10-inch squares, two darker, two lighter, and we put them each face to face, a dark with a light. And once we have that done, you want to make sure that you do square them up so that the edges are equal. And then we're going to sew down each outer side.
So we place them face to face and sew down one side.
That's correct. And then then you go and sew down the opposite side, top to bottom.
Making a sewed sandwich on two sides with the right sides on the inside.
Yeah, it sort of makes a tube. Once you've got that done, what you want to do is go to your cutting board and cut it exactly down the center. Once we have it cut in half, we go to the ironing board and iron it open. We take it back to our cutting board. We'll cut off a 1/2 inch from the side that has a seam on each one of them.
Okay, so each block gets a 1/2 inch taken off, then you iron it, and now I am going to make you do it all over again, and we're going to step by step through the video. Enjoy.
We have 4 fabrics, 2 light, 2 darker, 10-inch squares we're using this time. We're going to lay them face to face, sew down both outer sides, this side, and this side, and this side. We're using a 1/4 inch seam.
And we're finding out how fun it is to hold a camera and sew at the same time. 1/4 inch seams looks beautiful. At the end, we're going to backstitch, lock in that stitch.
Now we have both 10-inch square groupings sewed side on side. We're going to take them to the cutting board and we're cutting exactly down the middle. Okay, now we're at our cutting board. We have the stitch side on either side, and we're going to cut right down the middle. Take your ruler, mine is 5-inch wide, put it on the edge, cut down the middle. Now we have cut down the middle on both with our rotary cutter. We will take them to the ironing board and we will iron them open. Now we have sewn these, cut them in half, pressed them. We need to cut off of the seam side 1/2 inch. Now, cutting the last piece off of it. Now, all of our squares are square again. We started with a 10-inch square, sewed the seams on either side, pressed them, and if you measure now, you will have 9.5 inches all the way. Taking their 1/4 and 1/4 away, that's a 1/2 inch you cut off of the one side. Now, we take our pieces, dark side up, light side down. Take your other piece, put the dark side down and the lighter side up. Do this for both pieces. Okay, now we have them lined up. one on top of the other. We are going to cut them diagonally. All right, for the first one, we're going to cut top corner to the bottom right, from the point to the point. And on the opposite one, we're going to cut the opposite direction from the top right to the lower left. Now we've got them both cut. Ooh. Looks like I got a thread here and there. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this one and pair it to the top, and this one we're going to pair to the bottom. Okay, now they're cut, they're laid out. It's time to sew. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this down on this one. We will measure it up, make sure we've got it laying flat together. This one with this one. This with this one. And this with this one. And what we're going to do is we are going to sew, when we get it all laid out, right along this line. And yes, I know both of the seams here are going in the same direction. So when we start to sew, we'll turn it over, and we'll start on this top end and sew down so that always our seams on this angle is going down. That way we will not flip a seam. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine. Okay, here we are at a machine. We're going to start sewing. And remember, when you get to this section here, both seams are going down. I like to hold my finger over the thicker part here as I sew. Once I get over the thick spot, I can just keep right on going. Here we are, just finishing up. Like I showed in previous video, I always leave just a little bit of thread. I don't cut it right next to the fabric. Okay, now let's open this up. Whoops. There we go. Maybe not perfect right at this point, which it is off just a little bit, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that these seams, the squared on ones, get exactly straight. Okay, onward we go.
Okay, so you have pinned your squares together.
One pin right at the seam, and both seams are going down. And this is stretchy material. Not stretchy, but I mean it's cut on the bias, so it will stretch.
Okay.
So that's just a little safety for me as I get started here.
Okay.
And I use needle down so that once I take my first stitch.
And if I weren't too confident doing this, I might put 3 or 4 needles in instead of 1.
That is right.
Okay.
And that would be perfectly fine.
And 1/4 inch.
Yes, 1/4 inch seam always when you...
I tell you, I love these fabrics. This is magnificent. Very patriotic and yet very fun.
Never run over a pin.
Okay.
Make sure you remove it.
You could pop your needle otherwise.
Or bend it, and you don't want either one of those happening.
Okay. And it looks a little bit like these are uneven, But we measure and trim them all up at the end.
Yes, that is correct. They will all be squared up when they're done.
Okay.
Always leave an extra spacing for squaring because things happen.
Life happens, yes.
Correct.
Okay, beautiful. Now, are you starting from scrap fabric, or this is yardage you purchased?
You can buy 10-inch squares already pre-made. They're called layer cakes.
Okay.
Just get a pattern, whether it's floral, whether it's patriotic. Just get something that you like. And you can also do this with 5-inch squares, which the instructions is identical, except you'll be making a smaller quilt or a smaller project.
Or using a lot more of them.
Correct. You will, let's see, for roughly a 60-inch square, somewhere between 50 and 60-inch square, you will, if you're using the little 5-inch squares, you'll need 3 packages.
Okay.
Now, let me show you this.
Okay.
Remember, our seams are going down, both going in the same direction.
Okay.
So it is extremely hard to keep a point going. As you see, this point is off. But in the
oh my goodness, that is so close, though. I would not.
But in the long run, it's not going to be what's caught the attention. It's this seam over here that you want exactly right. And lucky, when we go to sew this, the seams will be in opposite directions, which will make it happen.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's the important part, and that way they'll fold in at those 2 edges.
That's correct. Now,
excellent.
We have all 4 sections done. We take them to the ironing board and put a little press on them. Then I'll show you what's next.
Okay, we'll meet you at the ironing board.
Now we're at the ironing board. We want to open it up and iron it. I like to do it from this side so that I can see that I'm not turning my seam. And I use just a little touch of steam. I'll turn it over now, and then I will press from this side.
And we do it on the other side first, so we know that our seams are laying correctly and we're not pressing them being wobbly.
Correct. That's number 1.
All right. Well, I'm excited about 2, 3, and 4.
Here they come.
Upside down.
Just a little press to make sure it's gone right.
And I see that you're pulling it ever so slightly before you do that first press. And that makes sure there's no bulk laying in there, and yet you're not pulling it enough to torque the fabric.
Correct, because I don't want an extra little layer crease here. I want it right down to where the seam is.
Okay.
But I don't want to pull it so much that I, like you say, torque it.
Okay. And again, I see a little pull on that before we went over that seam. Not much at all. Okay, with this fabric, I want to get a close-up on that. So I did catch you a little bit off there, but you said this seam does not matter. What matters is this seam matching with the next one, and this seam matching with the next one. Okay, so nobody's going to fret over that, because that little white star there, it pulls it right in. And we can take it back to the old, what was it? It wasn't wives' tales or whatever, but the quilters, Amish quilters, used to say that the only perfect quilt was one that
was made by God himself.
Made by God himself. So all of our little errors just mean that we're human.
Correct.
All right, beautiful. Well done.
We've got them laid out. Of course, we're still on the ironing board. But what we're going to do is we're going to lay this one face over, this one face over, and we're going to start, well, it looks like our Yes, our seam is down on the back, up on the front, so we will start on this end and sew across.
Perfect.
And come down here, the same thing. Seam is down, seam is up. Keep going right across here.
Okay, wonderful.
See you at the sewing machine.
Excellent. All right. And we're starting the second block. Holding our threads, 1/4 inch. Sure we're all lined up. On that needle, everything looks smooth and flat. And down to the home stretch. At the very end, we have another needle because again, we have all those seams coming together to make about 8 layers of fabric. And I'm trying to get in here to see that picture a little bit better. Sorry about my camera angle. There you go. Here, I'll Sylvia, that's perfect. I know it's hard to see on the camera, but we're gonna give you a close-up here if I get Sylvia's finger moved out of the way to show us. Okay, and that is beautiful. It's gone right over there and right over there. Straight line, points come out. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay. Oh, and that lays down so flat and nice. Very nice.
And what we're going to do this time is finger press. Well, main body of it wants to go that direction, so we'll let the point go that way.
Okay, and we're going to trim off a little bit of that bulk before you sew those two together to make 16 layers of fabric in one spot.
Well, more than you really like, but it works. And if you cut off the extra, it's less bulk in that spot.
And we lean one direction and one the opposite
That
direction.
is correct.
So it's not really 16, it's 8 one way, 8 the other.
Correct. We're just trimming this other side here.
That makes more sense. Perfect. That is beautiful. And that is a very fine stitch I'm seeing. What count is that?
I'm sewing with a 2.5. That's
2.5. All right.
It on your machine, just play with it. You might want to go with a 3.0. Different machines are different. I just like the super tight stitch. Actually sewing it that close together, there's generally not a need for back stitching at stopping and starting.
Okay, beautiful, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so we are going to take these 2 half blocks now, and we're going to lay them out like so, and then you face to face, fold them over, line up your seams, pin them, and then the real finished last run of the thread for the finishing of the 1 block.
Right.
And then we trim.
The reason you lay them this way is to make sure when you sew them together, you're sewing them together the correct way, not with one outer side on the inside.
Oh my goodness, yes.
That has been done before.
Okay.
And with this, we'll go in opposite directions.
Okay, I'm trying to get the camera to see that.
Okay.
Perfect. One laying one direction, one laying the other, flattening that out.
And it is a bulky seam compared to the other seams. But just go slow. No speed demons. You will have more trouble if you do go too fast.
And pin it. All right,
And
thanks.
pin.
Color it's like number 1 is both here plus catty corner across from it. Number 2 is, you know, in the 2 different places, etc. And that way, you know, you don't have to use 20 different pieces of fabric. How many pieces, how many colors are we using? It looks like we have this red 1, 2, 3, and 4 different places. So it looks like all of these fabrics are used 4 different times.
4 fabrics will give you this look. Of course, it needs pressing
there you go.
to take out some of the wrinkles.
So take note, draw out this design real quick in your junk journal. Grab that junk journal. And there's 4 different fabrics. Go ahead and rough out this shape. And then put those numbers next, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then put them in each of the block. And again, if you're using red is 1, this is 1, 1, 1, 1. If the blue is number 2, then 2, 2, 2, and 2. etc. with number 3 and number 4. So you have the cupcakes and you have the little spin wheels. Okay, absolutely beautiful. Thanks for sharing that with us today, Sylvia.
You're welcome.
Okay, and looks like you are all done with this one block, and thank you for taking us on the tour to create this. And this looks like you said it was a 17-inch block, and you're considering putting another row of blue or red around the outside for a pillow form, or whether you're going to use this one in the full quilt with other blocks. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Sylvia.
You're welcome.